the reason we're doing that is that we want to make sure that we keep a record of all the discussion. As a working as a task group, we would like to use this particular conference, the papers being presented, the keynote speeches, as well as the debate and the discussion to help us develop the research agenda in this important area. The proceedings will be made available on the conference website when it's completed, as well on the CIB website. I would like also to encourage you to use the chat facilities on MS Teams. That's going to be our record. So during any of the discussions, any of the presentations, if you're inspired, if you've got a comment, please type it in the chat. That will help us then in analyzing this conference and help us to develop this agenda. The main purpose of the CIB and this particular group in particular is we like to encourage collaboration. We like to encourage sharing of knowledge. We want to encourage networking. So it will be a great opportunity for us to know each other, and I would encourage you to make comments and express your views on any of the issues that we're going to share today. I would like now to make way. Before I do that, there are a couple of people I need to mention in name, and that's Ali and Shuaib. Ali and Shuaib, two senior researchers at Leeds Beckett University, and they have put a significant effort. I would like on record to thank both of them for their contribution. I would like now to pass you to the co-chair of the conference, Dr. Taha Al-Haj, as well as Taha is also the co-coordinator of this task group.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very warm welcome to all of you. It's really an honor having you at this CIB TG96 International Conference on Smart Built Environment. And I really would like to thank all of you for participating and sharing your knowledge and experiences on this knowledge domain, which is very much needed and timely for the construction industry. Big thanks to the two universities, Leeds Beckett University and Heriot-Watt University, for putting together this collaborative work and hosting this conference. Also, great appreciation to the organizing and scientific committees for the efforts they put during the paper review and also the organization of the activities for the conference. Great thanks and appreciation for the CIB as an organization, and we wish the CIB all the best for advanced and progressive future. To the working commissions and to the task groups and their coordinators who also helped a lot and supported the conference. Also to repeat Muhammad's point about Shuaib and Ali. Actually, they put great efforts to bring everything together. So great thanks to everyone, and I wish you an enjoyable conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Taha. May I suggest that when you keep your mic muted only when you need to speak, so we avoid any interference or echoing problems. I'd like now to invite Professor Akintola, the Dean of School of Built Environment Engineering and Computing from Leeds Beckett University, to say a few words.
Thank you, everyone. First of all, I want to say on behalf of the Vice Chancellor of Leeds Beckett University, Professor Peter Lee, I welcome the participants to this CIB 96 Accelerating Innovation and Construction Conference. The conference is jointly organized on behalf of CIB by the two universities already mentioned, Heriot-Watt University and Leeds Beckett University. Obviously, I'm delighted to welcome you as the Dean of School of Built Environment, Engineering and Computing. I'd like to thank the organizers of the conference, Dr. Taha El-Hag of Heriot-Watt University that I've known for many, many years, and also Professor Mohamed Dulaimi of Leeds Beckett University for giving me opportunity to say a few words at this occasion. I feel honored to be part of this conference. A very special occasion indeed, following the difficulty of the past 18 months we have all had as a result of COVID-19, which is still continuing. I understand the conference will have taken place last year, but it was postponed, again due to COVID-19. I would like to begin by congratulating all the participants at this conference. I am delighted to know that we have many academics from many countries who are presenting at this conference, either online, that is to say virtual conference, or in person in Dubai, face-to-face conference. At Leeds Beckett University, our commitment to teaching and learning, research and enterprise are at the core of everything we do. We are an ambitious university with a proud past and exciting future ahead of us. With a 190 years history of education, which began with the founding of the Leeds Mechanics Institute in 1824, we are proud of our heritage as a university. We are one of the UK leading and largest providers of professional education, training, research and development, transforming the lives and prospects of thousands of individuals and organizations every day. We are a powerhouse of our economy in Leeds, contributing over 700 million every year to our regional economy, which is wonderful. The School of Built Environment, Engineering and Computing at Leeds Beckett University is the home of the Leeds Sustainability Institute. The institute is known for its research in social policy, low carbon building, and material, green computing, renewable energy, and sustainable infrastructure. TG92 is set up to promote an agenda that focuses on increasing the pace of innovation in building and construction through examining the different theories and techniques that enable construction firms and projects to deliver innovation quicker. It recognizes the need to transform the construction industry to a smart industry, which shifts focus from physical structure to intelligent systems and tools that create, operate, and control the built environment. We are all aware of the responsibility we bear for sustainable and smart city and built environment. The UK government publication, Construction 2025 Industrial Strategy, Government and Industry in Partnership, has set out the long-term vision for how industry and government will work together to put Britain at the forefront of global construction, with the expectation that by 2025, the industry should be smart. That is, an industry that is efficient and technologically advanced. Smart industry and caring city are key to our future. The resilience, viability, and sustainability of our city and built environment should be our focus. Governments, users, and beneficiaries of the built environment are entrusting us to give them the very best we can always. It is therefore vital the industry keeps connecting with the society's needs. There are recurring challenges facing the industry, such as aging workforce, delivering projects online and on budget, shortage of skilled labor, as many companies experiencing high turnover, increasing competition with shrinking profit margins, lack of improvement in productivity on construction projects, slow adoption of new technologies, and of course, recovery from global global pandemic. To address some of these challenges, the industry must ensure that it is communicating with young people and not only expressing to them, but showing them the benefits of working in the construction industry. I don't know where your country is, but here in UK, we are experiencing shortage of workforce in the industry, particularly around digital technology to support our industry. What are we going to do about that? I'm sure Smart Built Environment, this conference should be able to bring out some of those issues. It is time for companies to invest in the correct tools for their business, and there's a need for new business model as well, and in a project management systems that integrates with their current systems. Research in accelerating innovation in construction through research network and forum should focus on some of these ideas and some of these issues. I understand the conference will seek to further develop conversation around how the construction industry can accelerate the pace of innovation to deliver a smart built environment. Many topics relevant to smart built environment will be presented and discussed at this conference. I'm sure the debates and discussions at this conference will go a long way to contribute in no small measure to ongoing debates on the matter and the need to find lasting solutions to address the issues of smart built environment. In conclusion, I wish you every success in your deliberations and a very pleasant conference. Good luck and thank you.
Thank you very much, Akintola. I think the point about what's the changes that's happening within the industry cannot think of itself as an island that's separated from what's happening in the rest of the economy. I'm not going to preempt the task group 96 meeting. I'd like to remind everyone that at the end of today, if you look at your program, there's going to be a workshop where we're going to discuss all those issues in detail. So thank you very much, Professor Akintola. Now I would like to move and ask Don, CIB CEO, to give his speech.
Thank you, Mohammed, and I hope the sound's okay. I can tell it's a little echoey here. Is it okay? Can you hear me okay? Okay, great, thank you. So it's my pleasure to add a welcome from CIB to this conference, and straight away I thank and congratulate the organisers from TG96, Task Group 96 on accelerating innovation in construction, particularly the faculty of the two lead organisations, Leeds Beckett and Heriot-Watt Dubai. CIB, as I hope most of you know, is Conseil International du Bâtiment, forgive the appalling French accent, International Council for Research and Innovation in Buildings and Construction. You can tell why I prefer actually the French title. We're the global network for research and innovation in our sector. Founded in 1953 under the auspices of the United Nations, we were based in the Netherlands for our first 65 years, recently now headquartered in Ottawa in Canada. And it's my honour to have become CEO nearly 2 years ago now. Unfortunately, that has coincided completely with the timing of the global pandemic. So it's been an interesting and challenging time for all of us. In terms of the funding and the governance of CIB, we're a membership organisation. There's some 100 institutions involved with us, universities, research and technology organisations, government funding agencies, industry, professional bodies, and plenty of others. Some 3,000 individuals and experts overall are involved in our work from well over 50 countries. You know, some of the core activities of CIB include 18 student chapters around the world based on individual universities bringing together PhD students. We launched this year a new early career researcher network. So those of you who would describe yourselves as in your early career, do look that up and do join. It's completely free to participate. We're looking to help those who see themselves as embarking on a career, broadly speaking, in the world of research and innovation in our sector. We want to support you and help you form your own peer networks and provide other learning and professional development opportunities. We've 40 commissions and task groups similar in operation to TG96, the organisers of this conference, and they cover most of the vital topics of our time, including the impact of climate change, developing countries, digitalisation, industrialisation, procurement matters, legal, economics, people and culture, materials, structures, fire, disasters and built environment, and of course innovation, and many, many more, frankly. And we'll see and hear a reflection of that breadth in the splendid range of papers that are to follow in this conference. I'm sorry we're not together face to face. I am actually here in Dubai, but I think I'm the only person who is. After 2 years of mainly virtual conferences, I think and I hope that we all recognise the added value that face-to-face contact, discussions and networking bring to conferences and to future relationships and collaborations that can develop from that. But of course we have to accept the restrictions on travel, whether those are imposed by governments or by corporate policies or by individual choice. And we all hope that things will improve in 2022. In particular, I know that many people are hoping that we're able to go ahead with a full face-to-face CIB World Building Congress in June 2022 in Melbourne, Australia. I hope that's firmly inked in your diaries. I mean, it'll default to an online conference such as this has, if absolutely necessary. But we've had over 600 papers, well, 600 abstracts actually. I hope those of you who submitted abstracts are busy finalising your papers because they're due at the end of this week, I think. As many as 10 parallel streams will take place during that conference. The proceedings will be scopused, indexed, and there'll be over 20 special issues from our partner journals to accompany the Congress. So it's a big deal. What we have to bear in mind is the new era means that face-to-face attendance at conferences is at a premium and will be, I think, at a premium in terms of budgets, time, environmental footprint. But for sure, there's huge value in face-to-face. But it's my view that, probably realistically, face-to-face conferences won't be as frequent as perhaps they were in the past. The future looks like a blend of face-to-face and online, doesn't it? With extra pressure on those of us holding face-to-face events to make sure that attendance in person is fully justified and delivers superior value, which is worth the extra cost, time and carbon involved. Back to the current conference, and I'd just like to touch on 3 angles, if I may. Firstly, timing. This is a month after COP26, as is appropriate for an NGO founded under the auspices of the United Nations. CIB is wholly committed to a mission of doing all we can to ensure that research and innovation in our sector delivers all it can to support attainment of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. As I'll say tomorrow in my keynote speech, hardly any of these goals are not impacted in a big way by our sector, frankly, whether positively or negatively. And there's no more important framework, surely, for understanding the sector's contribution to life. There's therefore no more important focus for CIB, and I trust that is reflected appropriately in the balance of our working commissions and our task groups and in our priority stakeholders. The second angle I'd like to touch on is the agenda for this conference. CIB has a number of working commissions and task groups focused on smart built environment, including, of course, the organisers of this conference, Task Group 96, accelerating innovation in construction, but also, for example, I think we've got people attending from Task Group 88, Smart Cities, and Working Commission 98, Intelligent and Responsive Buildings. Smart built environment enables productivity and prosperity, individual and societal health and well-being, and healthy and resilient living spaces without adding emissions and other environmental pollution to the natural environment. In short, I'm emphasising the importance of the scope of this conference to the Sustainable Development Goals. My third and final angle really is the location for this conference, or what would have been the location for this conference. The UAE and the wider Gulf Cooperation Council GCC area and the MENA region. It's great the conference can be held here in UAE. It's a region with its own climatic and geopolitical context, of course, and sector challenges including worker welfare, procurement, payment, and climate challenges, of course, including the role of oil. As I mentioned, we just finished COP26 in Glasgow, UK, and it's surely significant that the wider MENA region will host the next two COPs. COP27 will be in Egypt and COP28 will be here in the UAE. So in emphasising CIB's focus on the Sustainable Development Goals, this region will play an important part in the work of the United Nations over the next 2 to 3 years, and beyond, of course. For CIB, working with Heriot-Watt, Dubai and many others, this means a specific strategy to understand the context for research in this region and to make sure we engage with many more researchers, research organisations and related bodies, including funders, national governments, industry and other NGOs. More from CIB on this in the coming months, but I hope those of you who are in and from this region in this conference today will want to help us increase the impact of research and innovation in this region. And to register your interest or to volunteer support and engagement, please contact Professor Taha or myself. As I said, more from us soon on this in the coming months. So, in concluding, a warm welcome from CIB to the conference. May I express the thanks and appreciation of CIB to the organisers, particularly the faculty of the two lead universities, Leeds Beckett and Heriot-Watt Dubai. My thanks and appreciation also to the keynote speakers and to all the participants today. I wish everyone a productive and valuable 2 days. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Don. This is very inspiring. I think you probably put your finger on why CIB at the present environment is very important. The CIB facilitates the development of the agenda that we need in order to address the challenges from the climate emergency as well as the digital revolution. And I think I would like to emphasize and encourage my colleagues attending today is to their participation today is seen as an important building block in creating the agenda and guiding organizations, not only us universities and research institutions, but even in practice, the areas that we need to address in order for us, because government is going to set targets and going to tell us what they want. It's for us to identify how we're going to do it. It's for us to help the industry in how to achieve these targets. So it's an opportunity as well as a challenge. Before I finish, I think I should have also acknowledged the support from ECAM Journal, the Engineering, Construction and Architectural Management, with the editor Chime Anumba. There will a selection of papers from this conference will be recommended to ECAM to go through a process of review and hopefully published in a special issue. Okay, so thanks, Don, for this inspiring speech. Now, Mark, has Mark logged in? Mark Enzer, our first keynote speaker. Waiting for his response. I know Bilal is on. Bilal, I know you're supposed to go second, but since Mark, we're trying to locate Mark now. Bilal?
Yes, sure. Happy to go first.
Wonderful. I think we should proceed with your speech first. And hopefully Mark will join us later on. I mean, if Mark did join us, then you know you can have an extra half an hour.
Yes, you can have a long discussion.
Professor Mohammed, please, if Mark doesn't turn up, I'm more than happy to do mine now instead of later, if you don't mind.
All right. Okay. Okay. Let's see how it pans out.
Okay.
So we're Bilal is going to share his screen. Tell me when you're ready, Bilal.
So can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen. If I may briefly introduce Dr. Bilal. Dr. Bilal is a leading figure in BIM and digital technology. He has established change agents as an independent researcher and consultant. He's also founded a non-for-profit initiative, which is BIMI, and they have more than 150 volunteers. He has experience across the globe. He has a balanced portfolio, academic and practice. And I'm sure anyone who researched digitization in construction would be familiar with his work and his reports and papers. Are you ready, Bilal?
Sorry, technical problem caused fighting. It just disconnected my camera. Just give me a second. Sorry.
No worries. No worries. I mean, in normal.
Can you see my screen?
I can see your screen. Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure if the camera is working. All right.
Go ahead.
So give me a second. Well, thank you so much for the invitation, especially Dr. El-Haj and Dr. Dulaimi, and thank you to CIB for hosting this conference. Thank you for Don, the CEO, on the very difficult 2 years leading this large and very interconnected organization. My presentation today is about the community. We call it the BIM Excellence Initiative community. The title is How do we facilitate digital transformation through what we refer to as a modular language, and using that as a foundation, but through the efforts of an international community effort. So what's the importance of this? This is actually the gist of the discussion. I mean, is there a place for an initiative by community in this a very congested area of discussions covering digital transformation at international level. Why do we need it? So really, the drivers for this, this initiative, I'm sure other initiatives similar to the ones we are currently, enjoying through the works of many volunteers, is that the rapid digitalization of our industry. Some people would say it's not rapid enough. Some people would say it's going the wrong direction. Some people would say it is there's a wasted effort because of lots of repetition and maybe lack of focus or concentrated efforts. What we think, through the efforts of the community is that really the issue is not about too much, organization as such, but it's more about having a concerted effort, a common language that we can all use to enable researchers to move forward. And I'd like to qualify the term researchers that we use within the initiative. I'm hoping you agree with me that the researchers are not really just academics who are doing postgraduate studies or postdoctoral studies or whatever. Researchers cover, of course, these colleagues, but also cover informed practitioners who are applying rigorous methodology in their work, trying to identify problems, assess them, identify gaps, and find solutions. So really, we try to work with these types of researchers in order to try to understand, what does it mean when we say digital by default? What does it mean to say the digitalization of the built environment? And our approach is a bit, as you will see, is a bit complementary what you see. And in some areas, we also try to find a balance. As all of you would know, there are so many standards nowadays, so many guides, extensive amount of protocols, but mostly they share very similar attributes or qualities. They are delivered top down. They are mostly local. Then they try to become international. And they offer something packaged. They offer something that is already, it looks like a document, looks like a standard, and then it asks people to comply, to adopt, to follow. We try to look at this a little bit differently. We try to say, okay, maybe there's an alternative approach to this. Maybe there's a complementary approach to this. So rather than looking at things that are, directed or top-down or mandated, what about we look at finding solutions which through more open, through more bottom-up, and maybe customizable approaches that allow researchers, again, in the wider sense of the word, to develop their own solutions. And this is, if you want, the essence of this initiative. But in order to deliver this is, of course, you agree with me, it's not something that is easy or can be done quickly. There's lots of preparations needed. There's lots of conceptual foundations that need to be set. And really fundamentally, we cannot rely on a hierarchical ways of working in order to deliver this. If we're trying to do it in a community way, and we're trying to engage researchers from really different environments and with different aspirations and with different places, of course, we need to organize specialists in a loose way, but to bring them together to solve very specific challenges. So the initiative, just quickly, we are a not-for-profit organization. We focus on knowledge generation and sharing, or volunteers. We offer research-driven alternative, as just mentioned. Hopefully, we deliver a coherent response to the challenges of digital transformation within our industry, and we are supported partially by companies that share, our transformation goals, and I will mention my name at the end. But really, really thankful to the support we get from a small number of organizations that help us to deliver our projects and tools. Our mission: accelerate the digital transformation of the construction industry. Okay, But this is a mission, I guess, that is shared by many organizations. Where we try to differentiate ourselves is through our vision, is to demonstrate to researchers, demonstrate to companies, demonstrate to policymakers new ways of resolving the challenges, or addressing them, or at least minimizing the challenges, and maybe closing some gaps. This ties really well with what the esteemed speakers before me have just said, about the challenges faced by our industry. And this is not just, of course, new, or they didn't just accelerate in the past 2 years because of COVID. The digital transformation has started accelerating as we tag along other digital transformation efforts in other industries, as we see what's happening in the manufacturing industry, we see what's happening within the financial sector, etc. And of course, I mean, I'm not one of those who would say our construction industry is a laggard. I don't believe much of what is said in that respect. Meaning, I don't see the evidence for it. Of course, we all know these different diagrams that show the construction industry as lagging, but there are some issues about how to calculate this. But irrespective of that, whether it is lagging or not lagging, we can all contribute to accelerating the transformation. And how do we want to contribute as a community? We want to demonstrate that we can do things a little bit differently. Hopefully they are meaningful. Hopefully that people will see them. Maybe they will adapt them to their own needs, and hopefully they will develop their own initiatives so that we have a richer discussion and we have multiple ways of looking at challenges and resolving them. Our goals, help practitioners, really we look at the individual here. And the researcher, the practitioner, the academic, we want to improve their understanding of digital transformation challenges, but basically we want the end product, the end result of what we do is that practitioners working within industry to improve their digital competence. We want to assist organizations to change, the way they do things to make them digital by default. And we want to support policymakers. And you see some of our projects are targeted towards the practitioner, others are for organizations, and of course the policy makers. What do we deliver? We deliver something called, of course, matrices and lists. We deliver macro assessments for policymakers mostly. We develop and deliver modular workflows with the intention of these becoming templates that people can change. So, and you'll see this is a very different to what other organizations are, doing similar work where they offer maybe an optimized workflow that people need to follow, while we try to offer the minimum viable workflow that others can use and change and and build in order to customize for their own deliverables and for their own processes. And we deliver open access tools, and if there's a chance, I would show you some of them. So how do we do what we do? I mean, if you want to work within a community, if you don't have a mandate, if there is no structure, there is no organizational structure, there's no committees, and there's no directors and managers. How do you do this? We really rely on 3 complementary components. The most important one really is the common knowledge structures. The second is interconnected projects. So projects that rely on these common knowledge structures, but they are subdivided into small micro projects that are interconnected. And third, of course, on the community. So if you want these 3 components, the knowledge structure, the projects, and the community. And I'm going to cover them briefly now. So first, let's look at the common knowledge structures. So to facilitate the generation and sharing of knowledge, we follow these principles. I'm just going to share them with you quickly. One, the common knowledge foundations need to be set first. I mean, if we want to collaborate on resolving a digital transformation challenge, the first thing that we need to do is agree on, the terminology, for example. We need to set these foundations to start with before we address these problems. And having, common knowledge foundations are key to allow internationalization. As you will see from our work, we will focus on international first. So when we're trying to resolve a problem or to identify a set of solutions, we say, okay, what would work internationally? What is common between all these problems or all these different solutions that will make this set of solution work internationally, in different languages, and then allow their localization, allow their translation, allow their regionalization. The second would be we try to build and maintain what we refer to as knowledge building blocks or knowledge blocks. These are simplifications of the foundations, but formed in a certain way to allow people to combine them together. Like you use blocks to concrete blocks to build a wall if you want. So we try to keep these blocks as simple as possible to allow developing larger things, more complex tools and templates. Then we try to build common knowledge tools, and I'll discuss an example of that. But these tools, meaning they need to be easy to use, they need to be intuitive, they need to be easy enough to allow their adoption and to allow their adaptation by a wider audience. And then when we are trying to capture knowledge or share knowledge, we of course need to have these activity flows and process maps, which really translate knowledge into a series of actions that need to be followed. But for us to deliver this in a way that others can build on, we have to keep them linear, we have to keep them simple, we have to keep them granular, we have to deliver them at different scales to allow them to be combined from just to represent simple procedures and to be added up into complex processes. And finally, within this common knowledge structure, we need to share this knowledge. We need to share these blocks. We need to share these tools in different ways. Meaning, as we're dealing with an international audience across different languages and with different requirements and have different mandates, we need sometimes to share the same type of the same knowledge deliverable in different ways. So you will see that we sometimes publish using conference papers, or sometimes using an online view, sometimes using social media. And this model here represents these knowledge sets, this common knowledge structures, and you will find more information, more details about this if you go to bimexcellence.org, and you'll find it and you'll read a little bit more about it. But you'll see that we have these 5 things which are interconnected, these foundations which really cover the theories, the frameworks, the taxonomies, etc., that then gets simplified and modularized into blocks. These blocks are then used into tools. These tools are, driven. You collect knowledge for them, and they are, taught through very simplified workflows, activity flows at different scales, and all this knowledge is shared through different views, whether it is, as I said, like social media, like Instagram, or through LinkedIn, or through our own website. Now, if to understand this knowledge structure, I'm just going to dive a little bit into it quickly. When we say knowledge foundations, and we refer to a series of, this is where, if you want, the academic work comes into play. This is where we start. This is where we feed from as our foundations. And this is just an older descriptor, if you want, of how things are interconnected. And this is just an example, meaning we don't use this exact one in the initiative, but the idea is, we try when we're building our frameworks and we're building our models here, we are relying on taxonomies, we are relying on terms and classifications. It's a hierarchical building of knowledge structures to allow at the end to build tools. So without building proper foundations of knowledge, without having the right terminology, without having the classifications that are tested rigorously to develop taxonomies and then models and maybe compiled into usable frameworks, we will not be able to deliver tools which are intuitive to the practitioner. Now, the crux of it, when we other than researching things in an academic way, let's say, in a way that is all the attendees of this conference understand and value and excel in, we try now to simplify what we're doing by combining and simplifying these foundations into blocks. What do we mean by these blocks, and how do we use them? Here's an example of a block. So we have like 5, 6, now 7 blocks. So the first block we refer to as a dictionary item. So the foundation of any conceptual framework that can then lead to a tool is common internationalized terms and their descriptions. And this is what we refer to as a dictionary item. And here is a couple of examples. What do we mean by bill of quantities, or what do we mean by building information model, or what do we mean by lean, what do we mean by compliance, what do we mean by performance, etc. All these are dictionary items which are defined rigorously and prepared for combination into lists and taxonomies and then models and frameworks. Then we use these dictionary items to build what we refer to as structured statements. These structured statements take the form of, a task, or could take the ability to do something. So the action to generate, for example, a bill of quantities, or the ability to generate a bill of quantities. These statements are like short, well-structured statements that use dictionary items within them, and also rely on specific verbs or specific actions, like semantically connected. So when we say generate a bill of quantities, the word generate has a specific meaning, different to like develop or establish, etc. And having this rigor in developing our blocks allows us to use them consistently and to translate them consistently. So we start with the dictionary item, terms and the definitions. We go to structured statements, and then we develop something called model uses or information uses. And these are more complex knowledge structures. So for example, if we say we want to do clash detection or cost planning, meaning these are the uses you get out of a model, we rely on tens, if sometimes 100 or more structured statements, and 20 or 30 or sometimes more dictionary items. So when we're developing model uses, and I will show you an example later on, we rely on these items and statements. And then once we have these uses, we have these items, we have these statements, we are able to define functions, a role. A defined role is very different to a profession. So for example, when you say you have a person who is leading information management activities on a specific type of project, this is a defined role. Or we can say an organization is playing a specific role on a specific project. That's also a defined role. And we can define that role using the same structured language. So we say, okay, this defined role should have the ability to do cost planning, should have the ability to do seismic analysis. What does that mean? That means the ability to generate 3D models. This means the ability to parse the requirements from a standards document. Means this, it means that. And then within that, of course, we understand what each term is referred to in that role by referring to the dictionary items. And finally, based on all this, we can develop and deliver learning units. And these are, small bits of learning content that can be compiled into larger units. Also, they are modular, but the idea is in order to deliver learning units which are consistent, translatable, updatable over time in a consistent way, through version control, etc. We need the language used to develop these learning units to be reliant on structured statements, structured dictionary items, structured definitions of uses, and of course focused and delivered to meet the requirements of a specific defined role. So this dictionary item, technically, this is like a simplified version of dictionary item. Now, of course, we have, this is a little bit older, but now we have so much, in building. When we're building a dictionary item, we look at, what is the term, what's the acronym, what's the description, what the language is, we add labels, we have other linked items, etc. And all these are developed through an online tool. This is a, just a snapshot from the bimdictionary.com, where you can search for a specific dictionary item, meaning a term and its description, the similar terms, and you can look at it, depending on your language. We have currently 26 languages in the dictionary. If we look at structured statements, this is not well served at the moment by the initiative still, it's still being developed, but this is just to give you a practical use of them, where you can see these different statements, these statements would later be linked to specific, assessment of capability, will be linked to development of learning units, etc. And while model uses, you can find a lot of documentation online on the bimexcellence.org website about the model uses or tables we use. In essence, model uses, as explained before, is if you want to describe the abilities of an organization or an individual, we found the best way to describe them or to assess against them is not really to have non-structured discussion, but to assess a person or an organization abilities against what needs to be delivered. So these model uses, like you can see some of them here, we have 73 when we started, now we have up to 76. Each one of them is connected to a template, which we generate. We have lots of properties. The model uses will connect to statements. The statements will connect to dictionary items. And based on them, we develop something called activity flows. So for example, we have an online example. I can show you this if you want, or if later you go to bimdictionary.com and you search for clash detection, which is the first model use we developed as a template and then delivered online. Is you will see, what does it mean to do clash detection? What are the tools needed? What are the processes covered, etc. What are the terms included? And this is just the breakdown of what is a model use and how we can develop it. And all these are developed, through the community effort, as we'll discuss later on. Now, so we have these foundations. We have defined the blocks, and there are many people working on, increasing their number, improving their quality, making them more rigorous, updating them, etc. Then we combine them all, meaning the user at the end of the day, the practitioner, he doesn't have the patience to read research. Some of them do, but most of them really don't have the inclination to spend lots of time to read about frameworks and models, etc. Nor they will understand what is the meaning of blocks and how they're connected. So really, when we want to connect with the practitioner, we connect through the tool. And the tool could take the shape of a matrix, like the Bim maturity matrix, which is a template that an organization can use to self-assess. And this is one of the most used tools, to be honest, in the initiative, which has been translated to multiple languages. We get really excellent feedback from organizations who use it to assess themselves and try to identify what's needed to move to the next stage of performance excellence. I've discussed the Bim Dictionary, and this is an example of a contribution by Dr. Bill East, about what is CIB. People who want to understand quickly what is CIB, they can come to the dictionary, have a single page. They can watch a video by the author. They can have a couple of references, read it in their own language, etc. So the dictionary is also an example of a tool. This is our foundational online tool at the moment. We'll be building more. And of course, in order to deliver, to capture knowledge and to deliver knowledge, whether it's through training, education, self-paced learning, etc., we need flows. We need activity flows. Where these are the processes and procedures, and the way we deliver them. And there's a document online, if you can later refer to it, identifies how we scale our flows, like how we start with something simple that everybody understands, and then compile them up into flows. And finally, our knowledge views. How do we share all this? Meaning, you see everything I've just mentioned, they are interconnected. I mean, a tool is a view, of course, but sometimes a view is not a tool. For example, our peer-reviewed publications, which meaning at the moment there's developed by 3 or 4 of our community, but as we go forward, many more of our community will be publishing with the assistance of the larger community, and you'll see more papers. Hopefully, if we meet the deadline, you will see a couple of papers in the World Congress in Melbourne. And or the other type of view would be these peer-reviewed. This is between these brackets because it is our community who are reviewing them. This is a community of experts, community of researchers delivering these. And of course, we also deliver through a blog and a YouTube channel and a website, and we share on LinkedIn. We have an active Instagram account for a dictionary. Now, third component, meaning we covered the common language. We looked at these, different foundations. Sorry, the second component, the different foundations. We're looking at all this. All this is delivered through interconnected projects. So, Bim Dictionary is a project. We have a project specific for knowledge sharing, and I'm currently delivering to you through under that project. We have a project related to competence and learning. This hasn't been launched yet. We're still building, meaning we want to deliver it in a different way. We don't want to deliver just learning materials in a way that does not fit with our modularization simplification approach. Performance improvement, you've seen some of that. And we have a very active macro adoption project, which I'll explain quickly, and integrated information. So we have these 6 projects. I'll be covering integrated information tomorrow in my second presentation to you, covering the lifecycle information transformation exchange framework, which is part of Project F. But quickly, this is a dictionary. I mean, you have up to 130 people working on the dictionary from covering 26 languages from 41 countries working on this dictionary project. I've already covered that. Currently, we have more than 800 terms. Please, have a look, at the effort by all these different contributors. I'm just going to focus on Project A, Project E, the macro adoption project. Currently, there are 5 main contributors, if you want, managing or facilitating this project. We will be branching this into 40 countries. I mean, this is based on research conducted, benchmarking research we done in 2015, 2016. And then we did some in-depth studies in 2017, 2019. We were intending to launch, a new wave of assessment in 2020, but we all know what happened in 2020. So really, we are planning to go for it in 2022. We are rebuilding our information collection mechanisms, making things even hopefully better to be able to collect and develop learning, lessons learned to share with policymakers. Examples of deliverables of that project, some of you may have seen, the macro adoption work we do, or we've done with CETA in Ireland, or with Building Smart in Spain, or with RQC in Quebec. where they use, we offer them our models under Creative Commons. We help them to assess their own, market, identify gaps in their policies, and to deliver reports and recommendations for policymakers to improve digital transformation. And Project F, I'm going to cover this tomorrow, so I'm not going to spend time here, but the idea is this project is all about a different way of looking at integrated information based on a published framework, but it is split into multiple micro projects. For example, I've covered model uses, but model use is Project F2 split into 76 micro projects. We currently finished only one. We have 3 ongoing, but we will be recruiting for years to come in order to finish all the model uses. Project 3 about software classification, which will tie into model uses and other blocks. Now, finally, the final component of the initiative is, okay, so how do we do this? So we have a common knowledge structure. We have foundations, we have blocks, we have tools, etc. We have projects to deliver these, blocks and to connect them. But it's really, the driver for all this is the community. Where does this community come from? What do they join? They come from more than 40 countries, as already mentioned. There are professors, we have esteemed professors, we have students, we have practitioners, we have academics, we have, as young as 19, as old as, 73 or 74, a mix of genders, try to keep a balance, of course, different countries and specializations. These are, if you want, the specialists. These are the volunteers. These are the people who know these topics because they either researched them in an academic sense or have done a master's or PhD in them, or this is what they do, at work, at their large organizations, at their small enterprises. They come into the community attracted by, clear knowledge structure and hopefully well-structured micro projects, and they want to help. Many people. There's so many people that want to help that actually we have closed our, currently temporarily, we are not accepting anyone new because we need to absorb these people who come in and benefit from them. Hopefully we'll be able to reopen again in the middle of 2022. This is our trajectory. It started 2016, 22, then 33, 46. We were hoping that by the end of 2021, we will reach 175 with a focus on these micro projects. But actually, because of the effects of the pandemic, we will not reach that. I don't know if we'll have a chance to discuss this, but the pandemic has really proved really beneficial at the start, meaning it's sad to say it. From a knowledge sharing and generation perspective, the first few months, everyone at home, everyone understand the importance of digital transformation, how working remotely is going to be or hybrid working would be the way forward, and but this wasn't sustained over time. People become a little saturated with the amount of of online virtual conferencing, and actually we found a drop in interest and in effort that people can spend. We are starting to see this is rebounding a bit. Hopefully the new variant does not of course cause casualty, more sickness in people, of course, but from a knowledge generation, from a community perspective, we're hoping that it does not delay us further from reaching our knowledge generation and sharing goals. So what are the challenges of, okay, we have all these professors, all these students, all these, practitioners. We have really a very clear mission. We have we have goals to reach, but of course, working, with the community has its benefits, but also has its challenges. So, the benefits, I didn't mention many of them, but other than having a loose group of specialists that can group and ungroup as needed. We are not really dependent on policy from the government, not dependent on funding from the government. We generate our own funds through support, but there are some challenges, meaning when working with the community, we have to keep the autonomy of these volunteers. We are very flat as a group of people, so we have to keep autonomy for different groups, but without chaos. So this is where the knowledge structures come into play. We should have some organization, but without bureaucracy, and this is very tricky to achieve, and we're always revisiting. Like sometimes we have, okay, this is a group of people doing this, and then starting to become stale or bureaucratic, and so try to flatten it again. We need to motivate people without financial reward. Meaning sometimes actually we do get support for specific research challenges, like we got this a couple of times, where an institution or a company wants to solve a specific knowledge-intensive problem and need help from experts and from researchers, and we've accepted their support, channeled the money that they give us to a small group of researchers where they end up developing a short report identifying the main ways of addressing that challenge. We want to continue to grow, but without losing, our community dynamics. We want to keep our research rigor, of course, but it's not as easily said as done with all these different levels of people that working with us from an academic sense, and people who are just starting university, or to people who are professors. We want to continuously, we want to continuously connect what we do. One of the things that the initiative is trying to avoid is what you see in other similar organizations, or you see in industry as a whole, is that you see parallel knowledge generation covering the same topic, and you'll see lots of overlap, and you'll see lots of redundancy, and you see lots of mistakes being repeated as well, not just knowledge being learned. So it's very challenging with a larger group of people to knit all these things together, to keep them meshed together. This has been the challenge of the pandemic. What's the right level of communication? What is the right channels of communication without over communication? Over communication is the killer of efforts like ours. When we overdo it, when there's too many meetings, when there's too many exchanges through Slack or whatever channel we use, people switch off or decrease their engagement with the rest, because they're all volunteers. So we have to, it's a very delicate balance we have to keep. We have to balance collaboration with competition. Competition is good, of course, but we need to balance collaboration with competition across the whole community in order to achieve the best results possible. We need to simplify without losing depth. We need to reduce ambiguity without increasing complexity, etc. I can go on and on about our challenges and what we've learned over the past couple of years or 3 years, but I would like to finish with thanking you all for attending this presentation, and I invite you to visit bimexcellence.org and learning more about the initiative. And finally, I would like to thank the supporters, like we have Nova BIM, we have the BIM Quebec in Canada, and Bexel Consulting also in Europe. And thank you, Dr. Dulaimi and Dr. Taha for this invitation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bilal. This is very exciting. I mean, I've got a number of questions to ask. Can I ask you, and probably I want the same I want to ask all keynote speakers, are you willing to share with us the PowerPoint presentation so we can make it available on our website? Great, thank you, Bilal. I want to ask Mark Enzer, if he's happy, if his time allows for us to take questions for Bilal now, or he wants to go ahead with his presentation.
Yes, I'm happy for you to do whatever works best for the audience. I'm afraid I do need to leave at 11, just to let you know.
All right. I think in this case, I'll please, Mark, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. I apologise for the the kind of slight disruption to normal service. I've got some slides which I'd be keen to share. So if we can go to that, clearly what I'll have to do is a kind of a compressed version, but hopefully you'll get a sense of what I was wanting to say, and then maybe there'll be an opportunity another time to dig into it in more detail. So the way that I was wanting to introduce the UK's National Digital Twin programme was to give a bit of context as to where it all started, to introduce digital twins and what we mean by digital twins, talk about why it matters, and then maybe most importantly, say what we're actually doing right now in the UK around the National Digital Twin programme. So the starting point for all of this was a report from our National Infrastructure Commission that came out 4 years ago now. It's called Data for the Public Good. I would recommend this paper to you. It's really
put that in the bucket.
I apologise. Sorry.
Delete bucket.
It's okay, Mark. Go ahead.
Okay. Are you seeing my my slides? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Sorry, I thought there was a question there. So this report from the National Infrastructure Commission, I would highly recommend it to you. It's visionary and looks ahead a number of years. It recommended that we should move towards having a national digital twin in the UK. And in order to facilitate that, it recommended that we produce an information management framework. I'll explain in a few moments what that's all about. And further, it recommended that we should bring together people from across government and industry and academia to enable all of this. And that's really what we have been doing. So that was the starting point. But what I'd like to do is take a bit of a step back, describe what we mean by digital twins, and then get back to this point of talking about the national digital twin, which we see as an ecosystem of connected digital twins. So I think if we're introducing digital twins, a familiar context would be Formula One. Clearly we've just had a very exciting Formula One season. I'm not sure it got to the right answer, but what is clear about Formula One is that it's not just the physical cars which move around at phenomenal speeds, but there's also a digital version of the cars that sits in the pit lane. There's data coming from the physical car that's informing the digital version, and that helps the people who are trying to win the race to generate insights. That helps them to make better decisions. And the kind of decisions we're talking about here are kind of engine management decisions, fuel management decisions, decisions about when to bring the car in for tyre changes, all sorts of important operational decisions. And those decisions can then lead to interventions back in the physical world that hopefully gives the edge in the race and can lead to the better outcomes. And so I think that with this rather simple introduction to digital twins around the basis of Formula One cars, you can see the essentials. And the essentials of digital twins really is that there's a data connection between the physical worlds and the digital worlds that helps to generate insights, drive better decisions. The better decisions enable better interventions, and that hopefully leads to better outcomes. So you've got this two-way connection, data going one way and interventions going the other. So that's a kind of a simple digital twin. But in the built environment, we can see many different digital twins for many different purposes. Something that I think should unite them all is that their route to value is around making better decisions faster. That's the essential proposition of digital twins. In the built environment, we can see that we can have digital twins of assets and processes and systems. And you might say, well, processes don't seem to be very physical, but they're in the real world and we can have digital twins of them. And then within the digital twin, we can see that there's something important about managing the data, something around the models that help us to generate the insights, and we can imagine all sorts of different approaches to that. Physics-based models, agent-based models, we can use AI in there, but basically we're generating insights. And then we need some kind of visualization to enable us to see what's going on in the digital twin and make the better decisions. And what I think is important here is to recognize the difference between the visualization and the twin. The visualization helps us to see what's going on in the digital twin. We shouldn't muddle it up and think that the visualization is the twin. And something also which I think is important about digital twins in general is that they really need to be driven by purpose, and the purpose of the digital twins will then define everything else. It'll define the data refresh rate. Some digital twins need real time, but other digital twins don't. The purpose would drive the fidelity of the model. Some digital twins need high fidelity models, others don't. The purpose would also drive where the human fits in the loop. So the purpose becomes really important for effectively defining individual digital twins and how their components work together. But what I want to say in here is that we can imagine many different digital twins for many different purposes. And that then leads to this idea of connecting the digital twins. So here we see a digital twin of a train. You can imagine that being used to help make better operational decisions so that the train never breaks down in use, for example. But the same basics are true here, that you've got data going one way, you've got interventions going the other. But we can also imagine digital twins of the track and digital twins of the signalling. Now, in the real world, in the physical world, all of those are obviously connected. You can get a lot of understanding of what's going on the track from what happens with the train as it goes over the track. So we've got the physical connection. And what we're talking about with digital twins really is making the connection between the digital twins. And that connection is a data connection. And we can therefore imagine how we can connect the twins up. And we can take this argument out another level. And so now you can see all sorts of digital twins around the train, as we talked about, train, track, signalling. But you can also see digital twins around road transport, digital twins around air transport. And so the same argument applies, that in the physical world, those are all connected up. And what we can imagine is connecting them up in the digital world, so connecting digital twins. But within there's already digital twins connected. So now we're starting to talk about this ecosystem of connected digital twins. And note that the thing that connects it is this information flow. The information flow, interestingly, is across organizational boundaries. And this is something which I think becomes really important in facilitating the overall national digital twin, because we've got to kind of get over those organizational boundaries. And so what it means is that we're not just looking at a technical solution here. We need solutions that address human and organizational factors. I'll come back to that very briefly. But the basic pattern here of seeing an ecosystem of connected digital twins can be taken up yet another level, where we can see all of those connected digital twins in transport, but also connected digital twins in energy and water and telecoms. And hopefully you get the picture here, that in the physical world, these are connected. And what we're doing is just connecting up the digital world. And those connections are not just making the connections within and across the sectors, but also they become really important to regulators and policymakers. So this whole idea of connecting up digital twins and creating an ecosystem of connected digital twins offers an immense amount of value. And this really is our definition of the national digital twin. It's not intended to be one massive model of everything, but rather it's an ecosystem of connected digital twins. It's all about interoperability, it's all about federation and connection. And again, at a sector level, you have sector boundaries. And so we'll come back to that, as I said. So a little tiny bit of context. All of this fits into a view of our built environment, which is systems based. Our built environment clearly is a system of systems. We've got complex interconnected systems in our economic infrastructure, our energy and transport, our telecoms and water, our waste systems. All of these are our economic infrastructure. Each of them are complex and interconnected, but they're connected with each other. So we've got this already a complex system of systems in economic infrastructure, but that's then connected to our social infrastructure, our hospitals, prisons, schools, commercial, industrial, residential buildings. And then there's another layer of complex interconnected systems in our natural environment. And clearly, when you add all of those together, you get our built environment. So hopefully we would see that our built environment is this system of systems. And our built environment is facing system level challenges. And so if we look, for example, at climate change, that affects the whole built environment, not just one part of it. And if we're going to achieve net zero, if we're going to achieve climate resilience, if we're going to achieve circular economy, then we really need to have systems level solutions to these systems level challenges. And that's pretty much what we start to see with this ecosystem of connected digital twins. This is recognised in UK government policy. Most recently, Transforming Infrastructure Performance came out in September, but it recognises this systems view of infrastructure, the interconnectedness of our built and natural environment. It also recognises that the way we get outcomes is through the services that these systems provide, and understanding how those systems work enables better interventions, and that's where these better decisions come. So it's kind of remodeling the built environment. It's seeing our projects as interventions on the system rather than seeing our built environment just as a series of projects. And at the heart of this is the idea of making better decisions faster to drive better interventions. And that sounds very similar, doesn't it, to what I was saying about this ecosystem of connected digital twins. So if we look at our system view of the built environment, we can see there many different digital twins for many different purposes all around the built environment. And then, as I illustrated earlier on, we're effectively connecting these up in the cyber world. And you could really say that this is about engineering the metaverse. The metaverse is the sum of our digital worlds. and I've already tried to put across that in the physical world, things are connected. And what we're doing here is connecting up the metaverse. It's the engineering end of it. And we can see again that that then can help inform regulators and policymakers, that when we recognise that these connections between digital and physical are actually cyber physical systems, really what we're doing is applying Industry 4.0 thinking to our built environment. It's new in the built environment, but it's not new to humanity. The whole thinking of cyber physical systems, using digital twins to help understand those systems and intervene more effectively, that has all been established in advanced manufacturing. We're just applying that thinking to our built environment. And again, if we look at our system level, we can see that there are all sorts of processes which are relevant across the system. And I think that when we have this theme of connections, we're not just talking about connections between digital twins and connections across organizational boundaries. We're also talking about connections across processes, because in reality, all of these infrastructure processes are connected, but very often information doesn't flow freely through them. So we need this information flow through our processes across our systems. And we can imagine digital twins being relevant in every one of these processes, making better use decisions, better operation decisions, better maintenance decisions, etc. And so hopefully that shows really what we're doing with the National Digital Twin Programme. We're looking to help the market advance, the state of the art to advance for digital twinning, but also most particularly to enable the connections between digital twins. And the core of this is the information management framework. And we see at its heart is this semantic solution We need to have a consistent approach to data modeling, shared reference data, and common security and access protocols. This is at the heart of the solution for the National Digital Twin. And it's absolutely necessary, that technical solution, but it's not sufficient. We also need to recognise that this is overall a socio-technical change programme. We need to address those human and organisational factors that I mentioned before, because we do need to get across organisational boundaries. And so we need to address ethics and skills, commercial solutions, legal solutions, regulatory solutions, all of these human and organisational factors that will actually make this work. And that's why we see this as a socio-technical change programme. It's not just technical. It's guided by principles. We produced our Gemini principles very early on in the programme, and if I had time, I would have told you more about what we're actually doing in the programme. We've got a very interesting project called Credo, which is a demonstrator in the climate resilience space. We've got a tangible working example of information sharing across organisational boundaries to help make better climate resilience decisions. I don't have time to describe it, but what I would commend to you is the film that describes what we're doing. So I think with that, I'll have to close and say thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark, for a very exciting and interesting presentation. Would you have time for take one or two questions?
Yes, one or two. I'm afraid I do have to go at 11 though.
I understand. Any quick questions? By the way, I have to apologize the rush to get you started. I failed to introduce you properly. Mark is the head of the National Digital Twin Program, and he's a champion of the transformation of infrastructure in industry. Anyone wants to ask a quick question to Mark before we lose him?
If I may, is that okay?
Yeah, Taha, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark. It's really great talk and a lot of information to absorb and ideas. I just one point. You mentioned the social interaction and people dimension. My point is, it possible within the system of systems itself to add the people behavior and people usage of these systems within the digital twins, not just from the outside of it? Thank you.
Yes, it's a really good question. In fact, it's a huge question, and one that I think needs a lot of discussion. It's worthy of a lot of discussion, because I think that what we're mainly pointing at with the National Digital Twin Programme and what I've presented is using public data for public good. It's data relating to the assets that we use, assets and processes and systems. I think as soon as you start to make digital twins of people, then you're into a different space, and the ethics become very much more complex. I think it's really important to address it, and that's why I think your question is so good, and it's why it's such a big question. But I think that we do have to be very careful indeed when it comes to modelling people. I think you can model the behaviour of crowds. That's a different thing. But I think that we would have to tread very carefully if people were thinking that they themselves were being modelled. So you can see where the sensitivity comes, and I think it does make a big difference if we look at managing personal data versus managing systems and assets and process data. So I would prefer to keep a distance between those so that there's clarity. But basically, I'm agreeing that this is a really good question. I'm not properly answering it. I'm just saying we need to wrestle with that question. So thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
And with that, I'm really sorry, but I've got to run away. Thank you very much for inviting me, and apologies for the slightly curtailed version.
You are muted, Mohammed. You are muted.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark, and thanks for the warning. I'd like to bring Bilal, because I think some of the questions that have been, touched upon by Mark is something that we need to discuss. So back to both presentations, I would like to open the floor now for anyone who would like to ask question. You can even raise a question regarding Mark's presentation. We can discuss it, so do not limit yourself. But if you got something specific to what Bilal has raised. Yes, Ahmed. You have to unmute yourself first, Ahmed, and then you can ask the question. Ahmed, you raise your hand.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Go ahead, Ahmed.
Hi. Just a minute, okay.
We can hear you.
Okay. Regarding the efforts from Bim and what we listened from Mark, because Mark is talking about creating a replica to the city infrastructure and city buildings, and this should come with the support from BIM team.
Yes.
And how the to the city or the buildings.
You're breaking up.
Okay. My question: how can BIM help city to build a digital twin?
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Bilal, would you like to comment on this?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Ahmed, for your question. The definition used by Mark was very specific to the national approach they're taking in the UK, with the idea of an ecosystem rings true. And one thing that I think Mark mentioned, but maybe didn't stress, is that it doesn't have to be modeled as such. I mean, it doesn't have to be object-based 3D models for a digital twin to be beneficial. It doesn't mean that you always need it or you never need it. For some assets and asset portfolios, it may be enough to focus on information being modeled to represent digitally that asset. And for other assets, you may require having a 3D model included. Now, if we limit our understanding to BIM, like if we say BIM is modeling, it's about models and the process of modeling, then that really fills the part where modeling is needed. But what Mark is discussing, and he's the best to answer this, would be that BIM has a place in it, but this is more of a national policy of interconnecting data across asset portfolios to increase the benefits for policymakers. So it's a more of a vision. It's not a technical solution. It needs technical solutions, which includes BIM, PLM, GIS, and all these different things, but is not just BIM, okay? Or if you take my preferred characterization of BIM to be wider than what people typically use, like it is all the tools, all the processes, all the policies needed for digital transformation of our industry, of our built environment, then yes, BIM covers everything, okay? But it doesn't have to be 3D models for every small asset within that environment.
Okay, thank you.
think you're muted.
You're muted.
You are muted, Mohammed.
Oh, sorry. We have a question from Ahmed Ibrahim. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ahmed Ibrahim from NTNU, Norway. I just would like to add, it's not actually a question to be specific, but I would like to add to the maturity levels, like what Bilal has introduced in his presentation was really important. So for the international twin, like for a nation to transform, we can start from the micro level of the buildings by building a maturity plan for like the construction industry, how buildings can accumulate data. And in the future, with progress and time, things emerge nationally. So you can have a bigger model or macro level model of the city itself. And this should be through interoperability mechanisms. So I was hoping that Mark could have stayed with us in the session because I wanted to ask him about the tools that they use in the digital twin in UK. So that would have been interested. I hope that if Bilal has a background on this or like information about this, because I know that he's in UK too. So if he can introduce us about the tools that are being used for this program, really a great asset.
I'm actually in the next best place. I'm in Melbourne, Australia, but not with our dear professors in the UK. I'm not familiar with the detail. I mean, I follow, of course, all these different policy initiatives and national approaches to digital transformation. That's part of what we do at the initiative and part of what I do for work. I think it's better these questions are directed to someone who are really involved. But your comments are correct. But you can always approach this both top-down or bottom-up, or if you want to use the term scale, I would be introducing tomorrow in the presentation a scale, like a kind of hierarchy of scale, which is needed for digital transformation. You know, it's not enough to focus on small scale or large scale. We need to interconnect all these different scales, and I think your question feeds into that understanding.
Okay, thank you all. We have Zohra. Zohra, your question? Yes.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for the presentations. I really enjoyed it. I'm Zohra from Texas, and I have a question about, like, I want to know your opinion about how you think AI and artificial intelligence could improve those, like, digital twins frameworks. Like, do you see, like, as you said, like digital twin is not necessarily BIM assets or BIM models, 3D models, it's all about information. So how do you think AI could improve using those information or creating those informations? Thank you so much.
So I think this is again a question based, for Mark, because it's really very, very specific to the framework they're adopting, how they're approaching this, environments which include digital twins, and you'll find different descriptors of these environments depending who you talk to, depending on different countries and different frameworks. So the framework presented by Mark was really a national one, but it's not the only one. It's not the only one you'll find around the world. You'll find similar work, at academic level, within industry. Of course, the role of AI and machine learning in particular is very important as we go forward with anything. But before we get there, and before we are hung up on the issue of AI, we are really still struggling with the basics, to be honest. We're still struggling with how do you find an asset, how we connect an asset, how do we teach people, how do we define requirements. I'm always thinking forward of how an AI would help us, but I think our current approaches within our industry, our current misgivings, our current lack of of data, of lack of knowledge structures necessitates that we focus more on first defining the problem and what need to be resolved, and then relying on AI and machine learning to help us resolve it. Meaning, at the moment, the discussion of machine learning in our industry and digital twin, from my perspective, what I see is a bit premature. Okay, there's still way to go. before we reach that level. And even where do I get this from? Even if you look at the car industry, which are far ahead of us in the adoption of AI or machine learning, they are now stepping into the field and developing solutions for where the AI can excel. For us in our industry, we still have work to do before we get to these discussions. It's a very important topic, but it's not a foundational topic for delivering digital transformation policies across markets.
Bilal,
sorry, Zahra, to disappoint you with my answer, but that's how I see it.
No, it's fine. I would love to know your opinion. That's very interesting. Thank you.
Zohra, I think you raised an important question, and I think you provoked a very interesting reply from Bilal. Are you suggesting, Bilal, that we need to sort out the current industry situation, if we're going to see, if we ever going to have a chance to see the acceleration in the adoption of such advanced solutions?
Yes.
Look, I refer back to what should. Sorry, so go ahead,
Zohra.
No, please go ahead.
Zohra, please continue.
Yeah, okay. So what I was thinking is that, like, retrieving some information, like, let's say, occupants' behavior. There are some, like, retrieving such information may be very difficult by traditional methods. So how AI and it's like promising results in other fields may help us in retrieving more difficult and advanced information that are actually difficult to simulate them, basically. But it's maybe more easier to use the information and retrieve the information from, like, by developing AI models.
Bilal, do you want to respond?
Yeah, I would like to say that the issue of artificial intelligence or automation, autonomy, okay, is a maturity of within integration. It is not something that can be reached directly, and this is, I think, what I would like to clarify. Like, meaning, we are moving from manual works to computer assisted, okay, and then from computer assisted we want to go into automatic delivery of certain assets, and after that matures, we can get to autonomy. And autonomy, when you get to autonomy, this is where AI flourishes and it is needed. I'm saying that we are in a phase that we are moving from computer assisted up to automation, and moving through automation within our industry. AI will have a role as we progress through it. Currently, we are just unifying our data, trying to have common semantics, trying to share information in a structured way. We could use AI in an isolated, small project, but if we're discussing across the whole market, then there's still a way to go. My answer is at macro level. I guess what you mentioned, Zuhra, is accurate and needed at micro level.
Thanks, Bilal. I think Zohra have probably raised an important issue, is that the talk about a connected system, a connected ecosystem. It's possible that you can identify an area such as occupational behavior, where you can introduce the technology and you can use AI to develop the knowledge. But then, if you don't have the infrastructure where it's connected to the rest of the system, then you'll find you're going to struggle on how to act upon that. You're creating the knowledge, but the knowledge is not finding its way to where it could deliver the desired benefit. Taha.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I think there are different dimensions and levels when we talk about the adoption and application of AI in the construction industry. So what Bilal was referring to the for the digitalization of the sector, this is one level. But I think since the 90s, there were so many AI model developments to be used for certain type of phases or activities or processes in the construction industry, and the like of we can use, for example, artificial neural networks or fuzzy logic systems to develop models for planning, project planning, or estimation, or also risk management to help with better risk management processes. So I think there were models developed using AI in these kind of dimensions and levels, and they will be developed further and advanced further in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Abba. Thank you. Do we have any questions, any comments from the audience? I picked up on certain points that Bilal, I'm going to focus on you now, Bilal. You've talked about the how the essential development of conceptual constructs, okay? And I'd like you maybe if you can just clarify that. Then you mentioned about that the how important it is that disciplines are organized in a loose way. And then later on, you talked about the issue of defining roles. Are you? I'm trying to connect between the three, but I'll leave it to you maybe to clarify.
Yes, this is like it is. I understand my presentation covered lots of these like big ticket topics, let's say, and we didn't really delve into detail in any one of them. But if we look at concepts, you know, when we are building conceptual constructs, when we're building, meaning researchers like to build frameworks. I'm one of them, okay? If you want to build a framework to propose a practical solution, okay, you cannot really, this is what I advise people I work with or students I work with, you cannot really build a consistent framework that is actionable and testable without first really building the smaller pieces that go into a framework. Okay, what are these smaller pieces? We say, okay, a framework is made of what? Made of models, made of taxonomies, made of, at the essence, terms. If you don't solidify the terms first, like this is a bottom-up approach, it's like anything we do in an initiative. If you do not solidify the terms first, you cannot develop concepts and models and frameworks. Even a digital digital, you know, twin transformation framework similar to what presented by Mark, you cannot reach a consistent one without having defined all the things before it. You know, what does it include? How these things are interconnected. Now, this is the issue of conceptual hierarchy is a conceptual discussion that we have as researchers, as academics, if you want, about how to build frameworks. But this is on the side, practitioners don't understand any of this, okay? I would never raise conceptual hierarchy with a practitioner, okay? I will only discuss it with research students. But if we simplify it down and go to these blocks, and from blocks we go to these you know, defined roles within these blocks, people start to understand what we're talking about. So when we're saying a defined role, what is a defined role? You'll see even in ISO standardization 19650, now they don't no longer refer to roles, they refer to something called functions. Functions is like a limited set of abilities that are needed at a specific time within a specific project, okay? The way things are progressing within our industry, especially through you know, our virtual working, our loose coupling of teams, we are becoming more reliant on these granular abilities. Meaning, if I want to work now with someone on a project, I do not work with someone with a label. I do not really look at someone's label. Like, it's like, okay, I'm an architect, okay, I'm an engineer, I'm whatever. These are not the things that benefit me when building a team. I look at what do they know, what do you know, how do they, what the abilities do they bring to the project. This granularity of breaking down professions into competence and rebuilding them into these functions or roles are key for digital transformation. Meaning, if you want to work in a digital transformation environment, you are really relying on competence. You are relying on these small defined roles. Now, how to build these roles? We need concepts. We need conceptual frameworks. We need these blocks. We need this terminology. I know it's not a satisfactory answer, but these things are connected, but at the far end from really conceptual to really practical, and very hard to bring them together in a single statement.
But have you, Bilal, just pointed out why we're going to have resistance? Because if you're going to redefine roles, redefine disciplines, and you have the tradition, you have the institutions, and suddenly you say, you know, we no longer need to use the term quant surveyor or planner or even design. I mean, don't you think that this is a major issue that need to be at least not resolved, but at least people accept that we're going through a process at the end of which we're going to see the emergence of completely different roles that 20 years, 30 years ago, we were not familiar with?
I don't, you know, advocate for removing the labels completely, but I think, and I know from the work I do, is that they are losing value. Okay, they're becoming less valuable than they were before, and the focus now, especially in like innovative organizations, the focus is more on abilities, the granular abilities of a person. If we're looking at individuals, we're looking, okay, what do you bring to this company? Okay, you say you have this title, fine. What does this title include? You could have a specific specialty in bridges. You can have a specific, you know, capability in using software. You can have a specific, you know, certain information uses. This is more easier to identify and measure when you bring someone into a project, because you have these granular things that you can measure, okay, and combine to develop a team. I'm not saying that any traditional namings will disappear. No, I'm just saying becoming less quantifiable, less measurable, and thus less in demand in the future, less in demand. And you see like companies like the ones by Elon Musk or you know, similar innovative companies, they don't really rely on what what university, you know, gave you. They look at what you can do, what's your experience.
Great, Bilal. I think we have identified a new initiative here, a research initiative here. We have Ahmed has his hands up. Ahmed.
Yeah, I come back to the same topic about digital twin. You know, in Singapore, they built a city on digital twin, and we need BIM to build the infrastructure for the building. They will build a replica to the building, and they need the infrastructure like cables, piping, and other services. These are all connected, okay, to be connected to the building. The benefit of using digital twin from our operational perspective, that we are using it to optimize energy consumption. And this is most important. And the cost of digital twin can be paid back from energy saving that would be generated from the operation. Yes, the news I heard that within 2025, there will be around 50 cities which adopt digital twin. That's why we need to work on one table from operation, construction, and digital twin, BIM, to concentrate on this topic.
Okay, thank you very much, Ahmed. Anyone got any question, any comments to make before we?
Yes, I would like.
Yes, Ahmed, bro.
Yeah, I would like to ask Bilal, how do you see the ISO 19650 going to be developed in the industry, and what changes needed to be done to the standard in order to realize the real implementation of BIM in the real life?
Okay, I don't know if you follow my previous discussions about this topic, like in the previous discussions, I'm not in favor of focusing exclusively on ISO documents as a solution for digital transformation. I'm against that completely, wholeheartedly. ISO 19650 and similar protocols provide a minimum base for commonality, a minimum base, but they are pre-cooked and they expect people to comply with them. The message we give to people, the message we give to students, the practitioners, we need to always develop new things, innovate. We need to look at problems and try to develop new solutions for them. There is no solution that is permanent. Even if we need ISO 9650 and complementary documentation to help us at this stage, we should, as researchers, again, as academics and as people from industry, we should just approach them as the absolute minimum. And we should try to find ways of improving our industry without just complying with standards. It's not enough to comply, not to improve performance.
Okay, thank you, Bilal. I'm keen to, I think because we save time with Mark's presentation, we're going to have an extended coffee break. Can I ask Shoaib to explain to us how we're going to return back after the break? Shoaib?
Yes.
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. So once we go on break and we finish our break, the MS Teams platform has been set up in a way that you can join the different track of the day. So after break, we have track 1 and track 2 that is going to be running simultaneously as a parallel session. So you can either join track 1 or track 2. All you need to do is just click on the MS Teams platform day 1, track 1, and you would enter the platform. The chair is believed would have started the session, so you can just join in immediately. And if you are presenting in track 1, it would be nice for you to stay in track 1. If you are presenting in track 2, it would be nice for you to stay in track 2. But for all other guests and everyone, you can join either of the two, and you can move in between both simultaneously. So for instance, if you're in track 1 and you want to go to track 2, maybe you've had to see one presentation or the other after in track 1, you can just come out of that, just click on your MS Teams platform on your screen, okay, and you will be able to enter track 2, for instance, okay. So having said that, once we finish that track 1 and track 2 sessions, then we'll have the long break. So once we finish the long break, which I believe is going to end around 2 p.m., we would come back to Teams and join this platform that we are in right now. And that's the day 1 in brackets, opening session, keynote, and discussion. So we all come back here to join the afternoon keynote address. So I hope that is clear enough. And if anybody has a question, you can kindly ask now.
And we're there. We're here to support you in case you get lost, and but we'll be breaking now and rejoin again into 2 tracks at 12 o'clock, which is 30 minutes. 30 minutes from now. So exactly 30 minutes from now, we'll be coming back from the break, and you can go either track 1 or track 2. And as Shoaib has explained, you'll find that it's all marked on MS Teams. If you've got any problems, you can email Shoaib, email me, or go into any room and we can help you there. Any comments before we break? Okay.
Just to quickly add, so if you have any question like Professor Dulaimi has mentioned, you can go to the general tab on MS Teams and type your question, and any of us is going to just respond to you immediately. Thank you.
Right.
Please, Shaib, can I ask you a question? The last keynote speeches is 5 o'clock?
So
2 o'clock your time.
For today, it is 2 p.m. UK time.
2 p.m. UK time, that's fine, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So it's 5 o'clock Bahrain time. That's fine, no problem. Thank you.
Okay, guys, thank you very much, and we'll see you half an hour from now.
Thank you.
Enjoy your break. Bye.